Sorry about that, guys. Welcome to the 9th episode of the Esprit Tech live stream. I am James, and thanks for joining us today. We're going to cover a couple of new items today that we're really excited about. The first of those are our DS-12 Carbon Limited Editions, both the Carbon Black and Carbon Gray. And then we're going to get into our ToolKitRC electronic multi-tools. These are an awesome new device that's just coming in for us. Having some great luck with them, and we think you guys would be really interested to see what those do. At the end of the video, we are going to go and show you how to set up a wired buddy box. So for those of you flying DS-24, DS-12, you have the option of doing a wired buddy box, including buddy boxing to other brand transmitters. So this is kind of a new thing for Jeti and something we're just getting into. So we'd be excited to go over that with you. Jeti recently launched the new DS-12 radios this year. On top of that, we made the decision to do some unique versions of those. Originally, it was just going to be the Carbon Gray. Carbon Black was added at the last second. We've seen pre-orders on both of those, and we're very excited to get those delivered. Just because you see them here, no, we don't have them going out yet. Those will not go out till the end of the month. Jeti's getting those manufactured up for us. As soon as those come in, those of you with pre-orders, they will be going back out the door. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go to the overhead shot, and we're going to go through some of the new features on the radios. All right, so we'll start with the new Carbon Gray. Now the Carbon Gray is obviously a gray colored radio. It's actually kind of a neat molded color. Didn't really expect it to come out this way. It's a really good match for those of you that are flying scale military jets in the traditional gray schemes. The radio is going to look really good with what you're flying. For those of you that just into those military colors, the radio looks fantastic. What they did on this radio, they molded it in the new color, which is the gray polycarbonate material or gray poly material. They added the carbon face. And then to that package, to bring the value up on that package and give you a better feel, they've replaced both the gimbals and the buttons on the radio with the aluminum. On the Carbon Gray, they used the black anodized finish on all of the controls. They do feature the Hall effect sensor aluminum gimbals that are found on our DS-16 and DS-24 models. And then the buttons as well are those found on the DS-24. That does include the selector wheel, which was one of the things a lot of the customers didn't like on the originals, was the plastic 3D selector just didn't give you enough feel. As a side note, for those of you that do have the DS-12, the standard DS-12, you can order that aluminum 3D wheel. It does make a very nice difference in feel. Because it's machined aluminum, it has a little bit sharper edge, so it's very easy to get that to move. Your fingers don't slide across. It makes using that 3D selector much easier. Moving over to the DS-12 Carbon Black, what we decided to do was go for a little bit sharper finish on this radio. It's molded in the same black housing as the original DS-12 Black. We've added to that a gorgeous carbon faceplate, same one found on the Carbon Gray, and we chose to use the polished buttons from the DS-24. Just gives you a really good pop, gives you a little better kind of visual appeal, or a little different visual appeal for those of you kind of into the blacked out look, or currently flying or were flying a DS-12 Carbon Black or DS-16 Carbon Black or a DS-24 Carbon Black. This is a nice addition to that. Can't wait to get one of these at my own house because it does match my other radios. As far as the electronics between the new radio and the original radio, or the limited radio and the original radio, they are the same. Both of them are offered in a couple of packages. In the basic radio, or in the original radio, you had a basic, A, B, and deluxe. In the new Carbon editions, you will only find the basic version or the deluxe version. If you buy the basic, just like with the originals, you'll be able to log on to the software shop, purchase the modules that you want to add to the radio, and add them just like you did before. or if you purchase the deluxe version, that's taken care of ahead of time here. All of the modules are added to the radio before it ships out to you. Along with the changes to the radio itself, these limited editions do ship with the nice aluminum case that's found with the DS-24 and DS-16, as well as shipping along with a nice small receiver. So it does give you a very good value for the price that the radios are selling at. $11.25 on the carbon gray at the edit date on the video, and $11.50 on the carbon black. These are the new Jeti DS-12 carbon editions. If you're interested in switching to a DS-12 and really want to get your bang for the buck, take a look at these two models. Now I'm going to go ahead and go back to main if we could. I'm going to pull these out of the way for you. And now I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the new products that we brought in. ToolKitRC is a manufacturer of electronic multi-tools for the RC industry. Chargers and testers are their primary product. They do have some power supplies that are going to be coming in as well. These are awesome little devices. When we first looked at bringing these in, I really wasn't too impressed and wasn't very interested until they arrived and we got to put some time in with them. So the first one I want to talk about is the ST8. ST8 is a servo tester multi-tool. It has the ability of testing up to 8 servos, or running or driving up to 8 servos. One of the cool things that kind of differentiates it is you have the ability to drive the servo using multiple inputs. So you can run this from the knob on the side like a traditional servo tester. You can run it in a pre-programmed arrangement. You can run this off external input. So you can input S-Bus, PWM, or PPM into the servo tester to drive the servos using your own program. It makes it a little bit different. It also will show you current consumed by up to 4 of those 8 outputs. So you have the ability to actually see what's happening on the servo while it's in place. I've got a radio beeping at me, so we're going to go ahead and reach over and shut these two guys off real quick. So what I want to do, I'm going to go to the overhead. I'm going to plug this in. I want you guys to actually see the graphic interface that's used on this device. Really impressive. You'll notice that it's not a very big device at all. Doesn't take up a lot of space in your workshop or in your toolkit or in your travel bag. Offers a whole bunch of functionality in a small package. So Jason, if we can go to the overhead. Perfect. I'm going to play with the camera a little bit here, guys, just so we can get a little bit closer on it. Go ahead and center that up. I'm going to go ahead and power it up so that you guys can see what that interface looks like. So I don't know how much you'll be able to pick up on the overhead camera. Hopefully you're able to see some of that. But there's a couple of different things going on. One, you'll notice there's a pause icon at the top. So if you were to run that, it's just going to run the basic test. Hit the pause and that'll stop again. You have the ability to jump into the menu and choose what the input type is, whether that's going to be a preset, an external input, an internal drive, a keyed drive, or the P1 controller, which is your proportional control, actually built into the box. That pops out so you can actually get your hands on that and run that. What we'll do is I'm going to go ahead and drop a servo into, pardon my big hands in the way, into our S1. Pull that into frame, and we'll go ahead and select that. We'll jump out, and we will jump out of our pause. But you can actually set that up to drive the output, and I am not driving the output at the moment. Bear with me, new device, always fun to play with. So am I on the right output? Let me verify. Oh, yeah, it helps when you plug it in right. So That mistake I yell at you guys all the time for when you call in, hey, check your polarity on your cables. Yeah, make sure you do that here as well. So this is the onboard servo tester. So right now it's in the servo test program. Within that program, you do have the ability to change how quickly the servo is driven and how far the servo is driven to the endpoints. If you're looking for a cycle tester, this is a great way to do that. I'm going to go ahead and hit exit so it pauses the program. I'm going to click on their 3D selector button and jump into the menu. In the program, you can simply turn that dial to move between the different selections that are available for you. It does give you, like I say, quite a few different options to drive these servos. So once you're in the program, you can use the mechanical driver or the potentiometer on the side to drive that. Now when you get into the program internally, you can change, like I said, how quickly that moves through, and you just use that 3D selector to cycle through the selections that are built in. There is a system menu in the system, so if you hold the 3D button down for a couple of seconds, it'll put you into the system menu. Here's where you would adjust the cycle, both in milliseconds and in hertz. You have the ability to change how many cycles it runs on the cycle tester. You can change the voltage output. Now the voltage output is kind of a unique feature because this will take 28 volts in, up to 28 volts in, and will put out through another port. I'm going to go ahead and lift that up. Through a second port on the side, you have the ability to actually output power to a selectable voltage, and that is done in the menu in the system. If you set that for a voltage higher than 7.4, it will still regulate the servo output to 7.4, but it will output via the power output what you've selected all the way up to 28 volts. So kind of a unique device compared to most of your basic servo testers on the market. Something I think is really going to be useful to have, especially you guys that are building, constantly setting centers and endpoints on servos. This is going to be a nice thing just to have around the shop. So I'm going to go ahead and pop the servo out and set it to the side. And we'll move on to the next cool device. So I'm going to go ahead and unplug the device, and we'll set that aside. And let me bring in our next one. Now our next device is very cool. Now we're not going to power this one up, but this is the new watt meter that's available from ToolkitRC. It is a very usable little tool. It does have a color graphic interface, just like what you saw from the ST8. It does have a few little awesome little features compared to most of the basic watt meters on the market. Let me flip that around and see. Yep, that's probably a little better, so now it's upright. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead and pop that out for you guys. It does come with a small USB cable. That'll allow you to do your programming, or your not programming, but your updates when they run them. And the device itself is very simple. It comes with 2 bare leads so that you would install whatever connectors you're typically using on the model that would allow you to use that in the stuff that you own. They didn't want to pre-configure this with connectors, and then you'd have to cut them off and solder them on again. Again, it does have a really nice little colored graphical interface and does give you a lot of information for your amperage, voltage, and wattage being run through the power system. It does also drive the servo itself, or drive your ESC signal through the port here on the side. And you can determine what values it drives up to, what your ramp is, and so on. So it's a very unique little watt meter compared to what most of us have in our kit. It's another great tool from them, and something we definitely would suggest adding. Now we get to my favorite stuff from ToolkitRC. The new line of chargers that we're bringing in with ToolKit are very awesome, and we're going to run through 3 of those now. The first of those is an awesome little device. Believe it or not, this, let me go ahead and pop it out of the box for you, give you an idea. This is a 10 amp 150 watt charger. So to give you an idea, I have very small hands as well, so this is it. So combine this with either a large external battery for a power source or a small plug-in AC/DC converter or power supply, and you've got an awesome little charger for those small flight packs or receiver packs. A great charger when you're running small sailplanes or small park-sized models. Awesome little charger to have. Really great little unit for the field. Input is just like everything else through the XT connectors. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this up so that you guys can see the display. Here, let me come up where you guys can see it. So again, we have a color display. It does have quite a few options there. This line of chargers are kind of very unique because they do a little more than just charge. This is a battery charger. This is a battery tester. It is also a signal driver, so it will drive PPM, PWM, and S-Bus. On top of that, it's also a signal measuring device, so you can actually plug this into one of your outputs on the receiver and read what the PWM signal from the receiver is being sent versus what the transmitter is requesting to verify everything is doing what it should. That's kind of a neat little tool. We have a lot of instances where people are calling in and saying, hey, my throttle's at 100%, but I'm not getting 100% throttle, or vice versa. They're at the bottom. Their receiver monitor is showing that it's sending a negative 100 signal, but their ESC is not kicking off, or it's not enabling. So this is one of those nice tools. So okay, plug this into the throttle lead and see what that throttle's actually outputting. This can be used with any of the systems on the market, so it's not limited to what we offer, but it's applicable to everybody. It's got a very unique little switch. I'm going to go ahead and step in here. You just slide your finger down or up on the switch to make the selections. It does have an exit button. It does have an OK button. So if we scroll up to voltage and click OK, it'll allow us to run from there. We can select on our battery. We can select all of the different options in the system just using this little touch slide switch. As you can see, there are no physical switches. Everything is touch, so it makes it a nice, neat, small package. Again, this is a 10 amp, 150 watt charger, capable of taking an input, I believe, up to 28 volts on this unit as well. Very nice, neat, small package. There aren't too many of us that couldn't get this in our flight bag or our flight box when we're going out to the field. Again, input connector is an XT connector, so it's something that most of you are used to. It does have the balance tap on the side, as well as the input connector. On the opposite side, again, input and the JR connector for your impulse or for your PWM, PPM, S-Bus monitoring. So we're going to go ahead and jump out of this and jump into the next charger in the lineup, and that's going to be the M8. The M8 is another very nice, very small charger. It is a little bit different than the M6 in the fact that this has, go ahead and set this up here, that this has, let's see if we can find a spot. Well, I'm going to have to hold that so you don't get a glare. It's a little bit different, and this has a single color display. It does not have a full color display. It is also a larger charger at 15 amps and 300 watts. Go ahead and size that up with the M6, and you can take a look at the difference there. I'm going to go ahead and pull those down a little bit so they're not on the screen. About half the size on the M6. So it's a nice option if you're charging really small packs. If you're charging a little bit larger packs, you can run with one of the M8 size chargers or the upcoming larger chargers. One thing I did forget to mention with all of the chargers, and we'll go ahead and pop the third one out while we're doing this, and that would be our M8S. So one of the nice things with these are set up to charge your kind of commercially available drones. They do have settings so they can direct charge the Mavic, Mavic Pro, the Phantom, a lot of what you're using out there. These are great little chargers for those multicopters that you're already flying. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these out of the way. I want to power up our M8. We'll let that come up. Now I'll have to hold that for you. Now you did hear that does have dual fans, so it does evacuate the heat. It is a charger. This does not have the touch switches. This features a 3D selector like what we had on the other devices like the ST8 servo tester. Now you'll see it does have charger, measure, output, and settings. Charger is pretty simple, just like what you're used to. You make your selection, you push in on that 3D selector, you choose the battery type, you choose the pack size, discharge amperage, charge amperage, and so on. This does do lithium, 4 of the lithium chemistries, as well as nickel cadmium and lead acid. So it does give you a little flexibility. Again, 15 amps, 300 watts. One of the cool things that I like with this is the measure feature. So we'll jump into measure. Here you have the ability to, just like with the other charger, add the balance tap, read the cells on the batteries. It will also measure your PWM, PPM, or S-bus settings. The other thing that this can do is this is also an ESC watt meter. So you have the ability to drive the ESC and read the current. So this would go between your battery and your ESC. Your ESC would plug into the device. You could drive that and read the amps. So this will do your amp meter duty as well as being a charger. Again, small device, so you have the ability to pack this away just about anywhere. Would not require a huge power supply. I believe this particular unit will run from 10 volts up to 30 volts of input. So it's very flexible. You can run this off your remote leads from a car battery, a large LiPo pack like we're doing here, or run this off an AC/DC adapter if you're happen to be charging at home. Most of the fields that are equipped with a solar flight station running a 12-volt system, you could tap into that system and run this charger as well. And you're running a really small device, not a lot of stuff to carry with you. This is a single battery charger. So if you're doing multiple batteries, you probably would want to wait for the larger charger to hit the shop. But for those guys flying single pack setups up to 6S, this is definitely the way to go. Go ahead and jump back into the main menu, go into the output settings, and again, this is the PWM, PPM, or S-bus driver. So you could plug in your device and send those signals. On the side, you'll notice it does have a USB connector. If you're running an input voltage that is below what's required for the device, you can boost that voltage by plugging in your USB power supply to run a 5-volt additional power supply into the system. JR connector built in on the side for your PPM, PWM, S-bus output or reading. Again, XT connectors, XT on the output. This device will output input voltage. You have the ability to select that by going into the settings menu. And in the settings menu, you can set your lowest input voltage, your input power, which is in watts, your safe temperature, and your charge time, and so on. Very easy to set up. You use the wheel to find your selection, click the wheel, and then move the wheel again to actually change the selection. Those of you that are flying Jeti are going to be really comfortable with this. It's very similar to the 3D button on the transmitter, and you guys are already using that, so not going to be very hard for you to adapt to. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back out, and we're going to go power this one down, and we're going to show you the last one in the lineup that we're showing today. Now this is going to be, now that was the M8, and this is the M8S. This charger, very similar to the M8. It is, however, a full color screen. So it changes a little bit. It's also an 18 amp 400 watt charger. So it is 100 watts larger as far as its capability. It will charge up to 18 amps versus the 15 amps in the standard M8 and versus the 10 amps in the M6. All of the functionality other than that is the same. What they've brought is a little bit bigger power supply and a nice colored interface. So if you're running out there in the sun and using this thing, it's a little bit easier to see the color, but you do have the ability to adjust things like the backlight intensity, the alarm volume, and so on. We'll escape there and we can jump out in the settings menu. And as you scroll through the settings menu, you have the ability to set an idle beep. So if the charger sits powered idle for more than your pre-selected amount of time, it will give you a tone. You find your S-bus value, backlight, buzzer, and so on. You have the ability to adjust that, the tone of the buzzer, as well as the ability to adjust the backlight to fit the conditions you're working in or what suits your eyes the best. Continuous work means that it will continue to run for doing multiple chargers. You have a work completed end, or let's go ahead and jump back into these so you can see that. You can, when you're charging the battery, set this to end when it reaches its charge, or you can set it to trickle. I believe that is a little more in the NiCad lead acid side of things. I don't know that I would particularly choose trickle charge on a LiPo at the end of the cycle, but it is built into the device. One of the things with any charger, just like the ones you're already using, we don't recommend setting anything to charge and walking away. It's just never going to be a good idea when we're dealing with lithium-based batteries. So those are the new products from ToolkitRC. We're really excited to have them. We know you guys will be too. Keep an eye on the page. We will be adding other accessories that go with these chargers, as well as bringing on more products from ToolkitRC. For now, we're just glad to have them on board. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a little video up while I set up for the next segment, and I'll see you in just a moment. All right, perfect. Hey guys, welcome back. Next segment that we want to talk about, or next thing we want to talk about in this segment, is setting up a wired buddy box. Those of you who have been with us for a really long time as far as Jeti know that we really prefer the wireless method, but that is not always available to you depending on what you're flying. One of the things that we're really excited about is adding the external PPM jack on the two latest radios. That gives us the option to do a wired buddy box, makes it a little easier to sim if you guys are using some of the more common sims out there, where originally we had to get creative to run the simulators. We no longer have to do that. So that feature, that external PPM jack, is found on both the 24 and on the 12 series of radios, and it's something that we thought we would show you how to set up. We do get questions on that. Guys are more comfortable with a wired connection if they're from the old school. So we're going to show you how it's done. We're going to be using today a DS-24 and a DS-12, as well as a transmitter that we kind of dug up just to show you that you can buddy box just about anything. But we'll start with the Jeti to Jeti setup. Things you're going to need, obviously, are going to be two Jeti radios. You're going to need a stereo trainer cord. Whatever length is up to you. We do sell them on the site. These are really nice cords with nice strain relief. Definitely worth the money to throw one in your case and have with you at the field in case you get the opportunity or you're needed for some help in training. So we're going to simulate our model today using single receiver, single servo, single battery. And we'll show you how to set up a buddy box. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the overhead camera. Okay, so some of this, unfortunately, guys, is going to be a little tough for you to see. Let me see if I can get this one a little better. I don't think we're going to make it. I think we're just going to have to deal with a little bit of glare on the 24, guys. Sorry about that. But I will walk you through what I'm doing. Those of you who set up a wired buddy box, it's going to be similar. Today we're going to start from the 24 to the 12, so in other words we're going to use the 24 as our instructor radio and the 12 as our student radio. First thing you're going to want to do, actually let's see if we can do this. I just little help from off screen there, folks. Let me see if we can get it up high enough. That's a little bit better, so at least we can get a little bit of screen image on that one without the glare. Appreciate that. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the menu, and we are going to go into the system menu, and in configuration, if you scroll down towards the bottom, you will find PPM connector settings and PPM jack function. And because we've buddy boxed with this transmitter before, you'll see that it is set up for PPM 8 positive and PPM input. So because we are going to be the teacher radio, that is going to be the correct setup. So we're going to go ahead and click OK. We're going to jump into our advanced properties menu and go to wireless modes trainer. A couple things happen here. This is where you set the radio to the mode that you want to use, whether it's default or double path, teacher or student. For now, the first thing that we are going to need to do is pair this with a receiver. In this case, we are using a Jeti R7 Plus receiver. I'm going to go ahead and get that bound up for you guys. Bind plug in, battery in. Recognizes the receiver right away. I'm going to tell it yes. We'll pop that bind plug out, and now it's set up. So we are going to go ahead and pop a servo in there, and let's see if we can figure out a good place to put this so you guys get some eyeball on it. There we go. So for right now, I should have, let's see, we got channel 1, we're in default. Let's go ahead and jump over and see what we've got. I'm going to go back to the model menu and go into my servo assignment, and my throttle should be on 1. So make sure my throttle's not locked, and make sure in Device Explorer I can see my receiver, which I can, so we are bound to the receiver. We do have that plugged in channel 1, and we are set to default. So first thing you want to do is get your programming set up on the model. Typically you're going to be buddy boxing a model that already is set up in the transmitter, so you're not going to go through the bind process, you're not going to go all that on the primary transmitter. I didn't have a model available, so we're going to go through and try and get that set up now so that we have that. So we are powered up. We do have everybody connected, and let's go ahead and make sure that we are seeing output, which we are. So we'll escape from there and make sure that we are plugged in correctly, and we are getting throttle. So we're probably locked out on that. Oh, let me jump in and make sure we don't have no problem. So what we're going to have to do is get our radio set up. Now we're going to jump into wireless trainer. We're going to set that up as our teacher with PPM input. You do have 2 selections, just to make you aware, in the menu. For teacher, one of those is going to be teacher, one is going to be teacher with PPM input. If you're doing a wired connection, you are going to want to use the PPM input for that wired connection. Otherwise, you'll set it up and it will not work. Likewise, if you're doing a wireless connection or wireless buddy boxing and you select the PPM input, it will not work with your wireless buddy boxing. So we are, make sure we're getting everything we need to here on this setup. Bear with me, I'm working off camera so that you're not seeing what's happening here, but alright, so we've got that in, and let's go ahead and we'll select teacher. We'll go ahead and plug our cable in. Now on the DS-24, transmitter ships with a plug in this particular port. This is the port that you will use for your wireless or your wired training. This is your PPM output, as well as, for those of you guys that are familiar with it, that is also the input for your FM radio antenna. So if you are doing the wired buddy boxing, you want to pull that plug, and that is where your wired trainer cord would go. So I'm going to go ahead and power up our second transmitter, make sure we have nothing there, and we're going to want to set that up as well. So we're going to go back into system menu, we're going to go down to our, back into configuration, and down into our PPM settings. So in this situation, we are running our PPM connector at PPM 8 positive, our PPM jack function as PPM 8 positive, because we are sending from one transmitter to the other, from that transmitter to the aircraft. This is going to be a PPM positive output. The 24 will be a PPM positive input and will transmit to the receiver. So we're going to go ahead and click OK. And we're going to get our cable plugged in. On the DS-12, the jack is found on the top right, near your top switches there. So once we've got that plugged in, we'll go ahead and go into our advanced properties, into our wireless modes trainer, and into student, because that's what we're using this transmitter for. So we will go down and make sure we check, yep, we selected the correct one. So we want to go ahead and make sure that we have all of our functions enabled, which we do. We're going to do the same thing in our teacher transmitter. We're going to enable each of the controls, and first thing you want to do is make sure that you assign a trainer switch. In this case, we're going to go ahead and assign SF as our trainer switch. Then when we're finished with that, we can scroll down. You do have the ability to either mix inputs from the two transmitters or replace. Now if you use replace, when you pull that trainer switch, all of the command is going to come from the student radio. If you choose mix, you have commands coming from both radios, with the primary radio, the teacher radio, being the override. We're going to go ahead and select replace. We're going to go through and make sure that each of our functions are working where we need them to, and everybody is happy, which it looks like we are. And we'll go ahead and activate all of our control. Once you have this set up, it works very easy to, and we'll choose actually replace, and we'll do our throttle as well. You do have the ability to assign any control that's built into that model, as well as any of the emulated controls that you choose to give it based on the switch or the input and the channel that's assigned to. You want to make sure that everything is matching in the two transmitters, and everything appears to be for sure. So you're all set up at this point to fly from one radio to the other. If you bear with me just a second, we're going to pop out into default, and we're going to come back in. And I believe, let me check something here. I believe we are having a technical difficulty in our battery. So bear with me just a second, because we are not getting signal over to the servo where we should be. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into my timers and sensors. Good menu on Jeti, or a good lesson on Jeti. So you have the ability to add telemetry, of course, and we're going to click add, we're going to click system, and we're going to click voltage RX, and we're going to put that on our primary screen. Let's go ahead and see what we're seeing. 7.18 volts, so we are still in a decent threshold on the pack, so that's okay. And we will jump back into our menu and our model, make sure we have everybody assigned and everybody set up correctly. And go here, make sure we don't have any kind of cut switch activated. So we have our teacher is off, our teacher is on, and everybody is connected. Let's jump back into our advanced properties wireless modes trainer, and that is where we'll be able to see our connection between the two transmitters. So I'm not getting output on my servo, so what we're going to have to do is try and determine why we're not getting that. Bear with me just a second. It may actually be in the servo itself. I can hear it priming, but it's not operating. So bear with me just a second. I'm going to step away from the camera just a moment, and I'm going to grab AC backup for you. Bear with me just a moment. It literally worked 5 seconds ago. Hey guys, sorry about the delay. We did have a little bit of a technical difficulty, which happens when you're live. You can't help it. So go ahead and jumping back into this. We set up, just to recap, we set up our DS-24 as our primary. Our teacher radio, we set it up to teacher PPM input. We've enabled all of the output channels from the student radio with replace. So let me try and keep my hands out of your way here. If I move my aileron control on my teacher, I do have control. If I flip to the student, you'll see that I have no input from the teacher radio. and my student radio does everything that it should, simply flipping the switch. If we come down on aileron and set that to mix, you'll notice that, well, you won't notice because I'm in your way, but you'll notice that we do have input on the teacher radio, unless I'm an input from the other radio. I hope you guys are catching that. I'm watching it in the monitor, which is a little bit delayed. But so if I'm making an input and it's the wrong input, the teacher can actually override that input. So works very well in the mix setup. Gets a little bit confusing on situations like throttle. So if you're using the mix, I would definitely say to do the replace on the throttle or to not give the student throttle control. Most of us are used to a direct replace scenario where we just flip the switch to give or take control. So basic buddy box setup is very simple between two of our own transmitters, two of the Jeti transmitters. Both the wireless and the wired buddy boxing work very well. So what happens in the situation where you are at the field, there's a new pilot, and he does not fly Jeti? Unless you have a couple of Jetis with you, that buddy box scenario becomes very difficult up till now. Now, we do have the ability now to offer the ability to buddy box with other manufacturers' transmitters. So what we're going to do in this situation, let's say that you are a well-seasoned pilot and you're fairly new to Jeti. What we're going to do is we're going to say you just bought a 12. There's a new guy at the field or one of your friends. You got him to come out of the field with you. You want him to get a chance to fly. You want to bring somebody new into the hobby. This is the perfect scenario for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make our DS-12 our teacher radio using PPM input. We still have the same setup, so I'm going to go ahead and bind up that setup real quick as the primary here on the 12. Now that we're using it as the teacher radio, that process would have to be repeated. So I'll go ahead and power that up, bind that up. I don't show you the bind process on camera because if you guys are already familiar with the Jeti system, you know how that process is performed. So make sure that we have control, which we do. I'll go ahead and pull it up. Now what we did is we wanted to find the most basic transmitter that we could. Unfortunately, everything that we do is a little bit on the high end, so we kind of scoured the back room and came up with one of the most basic transmitters that is available on the market. Those of you who've been flying this stuff for a little bit recognize this. This is an older Spectrum DX6i. This is NOS stuff. It's been sitting in a closet somewhere for a really long time. But we wanted to use this radio so that you were able to see that you don't have to have a big computer radio or a lot of capability to do this setup. So what we're going to do is go ahead and I'm going to look around, and there's our trainer cord is on the back. So we're going to go ahead and plug that in, and you'll notice that immediately that switches over. So we're going to go ahead and jump back in because we've reassigned this, set these up for replace, and so that we can hand control over. So first thing we want to do is make sure we still have control. We do want to go ahead and assign a trainer switch. In this case, I don't like that one. Let's go ahead and use what would be our hold switch for us helicopter guys. We'll go ahead and click OK. So now we have a hold switch. We have our aileron control through our DS-12. On this particular radio, we do not have control. So we're going to go ahead and flip the switch. And you'll notice that we do have, I must have had mix somewhere, I bet you. Let's take a look and see. And we should have control. We are outputting different values. Good lesson. One of the things you need to be careful about if you're going to buddy box with a third-party transmitter is you need to make sure the channel assignment is correct. I did not jump into that because it's been so long since I did any Spectrum programming. You want to learn how to change the channels on a Spectrum, you're definitely going to have to jump into the manual. But this is just to give you an idea that you do have the ability to buddy box a transmitter from another manufacturer with your Jeti now. So those of you that are active members in your club and want to get out there and train new pilots or help out new pilots, those of you that are helping to get new pilots their turbine waiver, this is a fantastic opportunity for you to use your Jeti to train those pilots that may be flying another manufacturer's radio. Sorry about the delay that we had. Jason, you can go ahead and jump back to the main. We hate it when technical difficulties happen, but they do happen, even with us, hardcore professionals that we are. No, we hate it when it happens, but it does. And thanks for bearing with us while it did happen. I hope this is helpful to some of you guys out there. We'd love to see you guys on the site checking out the new product that we have. We know a lot of you are really anxious to get your hands on the new product, especially the carbon radios. Again, get your pre-order in because those are coming very quickly, so we don't want to sell out before you have a chance to get those. Don't forget to check out the ToolKitRC product that's available on the site now, as well as what we have coming out. Hit the like button. Definitely subscribe so you know when we put new videos out. I did want to mention too, for those of you that were on board with us on the helicopter video that we did, or the helicopter live stream, I have contacted a couple of other manufacturers. They are getting me flybarless controllers that are compatible with the Jeti system, and we are going to be doing short videos on how to set up. Currently that'll be the Brain and Icon unit, as well as the Axon unit for flybarless systems. I'm going to bring in a Spirit Pro so that we're able to show you how to set that up as well. So keep an eye out for those videos. If you subscribe, turn on the notifications, you'll see when those videos hit. It was really fun to have you guys with us today, and we can't wait to see you again. You have a great day.